Hello and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by three friends who love cinema. I'm Oliver and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Gus and Nate. Tonight you will be joining us in the lobby where we will discuss recent streaming releases and investigate more into the Batman. So go ahead, get comfortable and throw on that do not disturb sign as we begin our lobby talk.
What's going on, all you film junkies? Thanks for checking back in the Grand Cinema Hotel. We were faced with a dilemma this week. There was just absolutely too many good movies that came out on the streaming services, and rather than trying to decide on one, we just had to talk about all of them. And before we even get into that, I know we do want to talk a little bit more about The Batman, because we've probably seen it a collective of 100 more times since we talked about it last. So, yeah, let's get into it. You want to talk about The Batman, Guess?
Yes, I do. After listening to last week's episode, I think we were maybe too excited.
I had to say everything and then forget everything.
Yeah, right? Like, I thought there was some important aspects that we didn't really touch on as much as we should have, because it's not like we didn't like them. It's just that I think we were just so caught up in
so
everything.
Hyped, yeah.
And I didn't have enough notes, honestly. I went straight reaction after seeing it that day. But it can't be said enough how good Robert Pattinson is as Batman. And I guess you could say his Bruce Wayne is lacking a little bit, but for me, that's not exactly a problem in the movie. And I also wanted to touch more on Zoe Kravitz and Colin Farrell, because we had talked about the Penguin a bit.
Wait, Colin Farrell's in that movie?
Yeah, Colin Farrell had himself a hell of a week with the Batman in one of the movies we're going to be talking about later. So, yeah, I just wanted to open it up with the Batman a little more, and we'll get to those other things soon. But dude, the Batman, like,
Jesus.
Even these movies that we are going to talk about, none of them hit me the way the Batman did.
No, I still catch myself, like, seeing, like, 2 or 3 new movies now, and I just keep thinking about the Batman, like, all day, every day. Like, it's a problem, but...
It's like, wouldn't it be cool if I could just stream the Batman?
Exactly.
Yeah. April 19th can't come fast.
I know, that's what I keep thinking about.
HBO. Another thing I wanted to touch on that I didn't think we talked about as much as we should have is the sound design in the movie. I think it's easily one of the most vital parts, especially if you saw it in an IMAX or Dolby setting. Dude, when Batman's throwing blows, you can feel it on the head.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Like, I got a concussion just listening to him punch people. Yeah, exactly.
You know what's weird is me and Gus, you and me went to go see it yesterday, and it's the last time I hadn't slept very well the night before. So I had, like, those weird headaches that, like, linger kind of like throughout the whole day. And we went to go watch the movie, and I think it was specifically when the Batmobile comes out, the IMAX speakers just hit. Dude, I got a headache.
Really?
I felt, but it's one of those, because I love this movie so much, I was like, it almost made me happy. Like, that's so cool that this is giving me a headache right now. But it really, like, the sound completely, like, oh my God. I was like, I'm in this chase. Like, it, like, re-woke me back up, because, like, the headache was getting to me, and then, like, it, like, oh my God, like, and then it just went away as soon as the music went down.
That's so funny.
Just in terms of like, how intense it is.
That sound design in the IMAX, that Batmobile scene when it's revving up, like, you can feel that shit in your bones. Like, it's absolutely insane. It's so much fun. And Gus, I do think that you brought up a good point. Like, I feel like we did not talk about Robert Pattinson enough, probably. And, like, I don't know. I think it just kind of stems from when he was cast in the first place. Like, I feel people were kind of like, what the hell are you doing? Because he still doesn't get the props that he deserves as a serious actor. And I think that he just proved that, this was his role, and he absolutely claimed that shit. He was so good, so.
I think this is the first time, I can't remember if I've mentioned my sister on the podcast before, but she saw it with my dad, and I think my mom's the only one who hasn't seen it yet. This made me, like, really happy, is that my dad and my sister and my wife, who've all seen it now, they really loved it. So I feel, like, super validated, even though I have no part in
Beat the allegations.
But yeah, like, I posted that meme of Snoop Dogg praying in court, and it's like, when your family beats the Batman's too long allegations. Like, my family absolutely loved it. My sister, I'm pretty sure she's liked Robert Pattinson since Twilight, because she had texted me that she was like, I think Robert Pattinson's finally going to get the credit he deserves because he's underrated as fuck. And yeah, I mean, I agree. I think some of us came around to him during Good Time, and like that was kind of his turn for, like, I would say film heads, quote unquote. But he has been in a lot of good movies other than the Twilight ones. And I mean, some of those being like The Lighthouse, Good Time, High Life. I know
Tenet.
people really like
Tenet,
Tenet. I know people really like the Western film The Rover. Have you ever seen
I've heard of that. I haven't seen that yet, though.
The Sexy Space movie.
That's High Life.
High Life.
Highlight.
That one's crazy. That's a trip.
He was in another film called Damsel, which is another Western. I don't know if you've seen
I've not even heard of that one.
Yeah, that's an interesting one as well. But him being cast as Batman kind of makes so much sense in retrospect, don't you think?
I would think so, because I mean, when I saw that, I know we were all hyped.
Yeah.
Like we were like, this makes sense, especially because we had heard the rumors of it being the dark and edgy type Batman, maybe a little more detective type Batman, and like it just kind of made sense to me.
I especially think after Tenet, you could see where he could have played like the playboy type of Bruce Wayne as well. I just think that if that's something that bothered you in this movie, is that we're gonna get that eventually.
I think
Because
so too.
I really think after, we could talk about spoilers. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
it's been
yeah,
enough time.
yeah.
If you wanted to see it, you probably would have by now. I think what the Riddler ends up bringing out of Batman is that he's going to have to be a better Bruce Wayne going forward. So I think we're going to see a lot more range from Robert Pattinson throughout the trilogy. Knock on wood that we get all three.
Exactly.
Because I think in this movie, he's just not really concerned about being Bruce Wayne.
No, that's the whole problem.
Yeah, and I think, especially if you love the other, like the Batman Begins and the Dark Knight and stuff like that, those movies have a very strong Bruce Wayne.
Very, yeah.
And if people like to play the compare game, I mean, we've done it ourselves on this show. I just think that he's not there yet, but that now, because of the circumstances of the film, he's going to have to change because he's kind of been brought into the light.
Yeah.
And now it's his turn to kind of change his family's, the new perception people have about his family.
No, exactly. I think you made a good point. And I mean, like we're talking about, I think that a big problem with the Batman in this movie, like as a character, is the fact that, well, I mean, obviously the whole movie's about his arc and him becoming an actual hero rather than a vigilante. And I think the whole problem with the fact that he's not present in his life as Bruce Wayne is the fact that you see all these criminals and politicians just running their hands through the renewal project. And if he was super involved in that as Bruce Wayne and like actually looking over finances and stuff like that, he probably would have caught that. You know what I mean? So, or would at least have a little more control over the situation. So I think that it probably opened his eyes to the fact that, maybe he does need to be more present. So I think we'll see that change as the films go on. And I think that's what I really like about Matt Reeves' direction is it seems like these stories are going to be a lot of progression through Batman as a character. Whereas like you have the Dark Knight series where that, I mean, you do get changes in Bruce Wayne, but it almost feels like he is who he is. Like there's not a whole lot of change going on, rather than I think that this will probably change in these movies.
In that trilogy, there's more of an emphasis on the third movie, which is like him rebuilding himself because he's already so high up.
Exactly.
Yeah. I do think that what Robert Pattinson brings to the role is a Batman that is broken, who by the end has hope. And I think what Christian Bale's Batman was a Batman who was a lot more sure of himself, and then throughout the trilogy was broken down.
Getting broken down.
And I feel like this Batman series overall is going to be more about hope than the last one was.
I think so too.
Which I think is, I like that.
I do too.
I don't know really how. I mean, I'm kind of tired of comparing the two because they're both like super good, obviously, and they're both very different. But yeah, I just think that this is an interesting angle on Batman that we didn't really get before, and I'm more excited to see him as a hero than the Caped Crusader or the Dark Knight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm ready to see him in like doing heroic things more like he did in the original two films, like Batman.
Yeah,
Batman
exactly.
Returns.
Like it's almost like we're getting to see Batman grow up. Like it's kind of cool. Like
Yeah.
it's interesting. So I'm with it.
I also think Robert Pattinson had great chemistry with Zoe Kravitz. Like, if you're of a certain age, you're probably not even used to seeing movies where the two stars had sex appeal.
Yeah.
They kind of had chemistry. Believe it or not, actors used to even sometimes sleep with each other.
Yeah, right. They used to just get married and then divorce and marry the next their star of the next
like, there were
movie.
so many
Like
celebrities,
Tom
when we were
Cruise and
kids,
Brad Pitt and everybody like that.
they
Like
just
for
marry
sure.
their co-star.
Yeah.
Like, or I think the last people who are really keeping that alive are like Oscar Isaac and everything he's in. He like pretends to fall in love with his co-star.
That's true.
And
That's so funny.
Seriously.
and Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga pulled that off pretty well
That's true.
too, which was all an act, by the way. But I think that they really do have this chemistry that I don't. Do you guys think that the chemistry between Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz is deeper than the one that Michael Keaton had with Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman?
No.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Do you think it's equal?
I think it's different. Like, I don't know. Oh man,
I still think
I think you got a lot more intimate scenes in the 91 or 92, something like that. I think you had a lot more like scenes of them two by themselves, like being also Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle rather than just Catwoman and Batman.
That's true.
So then you
It's a
got
big
that
difference.
like mix of the dynamic of the relationship. So I think it's different. And in that, I would give it to Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton. I honestly just give it to Michelle Pfeiffer, period.
Yeah, period.
But the chemistry that that Batman and Catwoman had as like Zoe Kravitz and Robert Pattinson, I mean, like it was there, and I liked it a lot, and it was noticeable.
A big difference was there's sexual tension in this Batman between the Catwoman and Batman, and then in Batman Returns, they're actually interested in each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And he reveals himself to her. I mean, at the end, to Catwoman. Like that's how much it transcends. Like, oh, I like this girl so much more. And it's funny because the first one's with Vicky Vale. So
You know,
Yeah.
now that you say that about the ripping off his mask, we had brought this up yesterday, and I think it's cool to. I think it's an interesting take because we haven't seen this before, which is, I mean, I'm sure you guys loved it as much as I did. The Batman wearing the eyeliner and the
Oh yeah,
mascara
of
and all
course.
that, right,
When
with
he's
the
putting
face
on the
paint.
beginning, like let's
Yeah.
go.
Ro was telling me yesterday that he likes Michael Keaton's suit, but that the worst part about it is the helmet, or not the helmet, but the cowl, and,
Yeah.
like, the neck and all that. But how he just rips it off.
Yeah,
in Batman
like,
Returns.
like what? So you just get a new like mask every
And
single
it's just,
time you have
like,
to take
straight
it off.
rubber, right?
Yeah.
But that Ro was saying that he had seen people on Twitter talking about that. Warner Brothers back in the day didn't want to really show like emphasize the detail that Batman used to wear like the eye makeup under the suit. So in that scene with Catwoman and Batman Returns, you can see the eye makeup, but then when he rips it off,
doesn't have
there's
it
no
on.
eye makeup.
Interesting.
So, like,
I never
changed
noticed
it.
that.
So
That's so funny.
There's the last scene. It's him talking to her about to rip it off, and then it switches to Michelle Pfeiffer's face, right? And then it switches back to Michael Keaton. Now he doesn't have any of the black under.
That's
and then He rips
funny.
it off. It's just his face. You know?
Interesting. I never noticed that. That's really fucking.
You know, I
funny.
wonder if that's what Colin Farrell did with his makeup at the end of every day, right?
I gotta get out of here.
There's too much fucking shit on me.
How do you want to be around anymore?
I did see that. Who was talking? I think it was Jeffrey Wright and Paul Dano. They were talking about they walked right by him, Colin Farrell, because they didn't know it was him. And then sometimes he would sit with the face of Cobblepot and like shorts and everything, and he's smoking. And I just that's so funny
That
to
is
imagine.
funny.
You know,
I need some pics of that. Some behind the scenes
'Cause
pics.
I recently, I think it was on Twitter. I seen them. It came up pictures of him like he was vaping. And I didn't
Yeah.
even know he vaped, Colin Farrell.
That's funny.
So it's like huge clouds too. So I can imagine just Cobblepot, like him just sitting there, be like in the set of Gotham, right? And just vaping, with shorts on.
There's a story that
So
Timothy
funny.
Chalamet has about Robert Pattinson on the set of The King wearing like full battle armor and everything and vaping on set. So I wonder if the Batman and the Penguin ever just vape together. And
Yeah.
Hey, you want to
Yeah,
try my
he's
vape, bro?
about
try this flavor.
You got a vape?
That's funny. No, let's talk about Colin Farrell. I mean, that's a really good performance.
Yeah.
He did a really
He
good
had a hell
job.
of a week, dude. After
He did.
Gang and the Batman.
I think what really stood out to me is it's maybe it's a combination of both. I think, but Batman Returns is a Penguin, and then you get this. It's really hard to like again try to come up with something original after seeing Danny DeVito do that depiction. I think it's just so well done and freakish in its own way, and then for them to completely make him more of a mobster character, very Penguin in somewhat the way that he looks, but not really. And then we only get little stuff like the lounge, 44 Below, all those little ice references, and then just when he gets locked up, or like when they interrogating him and the way he wobbles, like those are small
Yeah.
little
Waddles
things.
like a
So
penguin,
good.
right?
And I even like that they kind of touched on like the fact that his two little like guys that guard the doors are basically like Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Like they're the twins, you know what I mean? Like
talks
subtle
about that,
stuff
right,
like
guys?
that is cool.
Oh yeah.
Learns from the school of
The school of the Safdie brothers that it's funny to just have twins in your movie for no
It-
reason.
Speaking of, so did you guys notice that in the like the openings, well, the second scene where he's talking about like I am the shadows and the dude robs the store with the drop mask on, he's wearing the same outfit that Robert Pattinson wore in Good Time.
Yeah,
He's
I did know
right,
Oh, I
and the
definitely brought it
the liquor store that he robs is Good Time Liquor.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was like a
So
cool
he's
little
wearing,
homage.
like, Connie's outfit from the first bank robbery. Like
Oh, really?
The red
jacket
pants and the
yeah.
gray jacket and
I didn't
everything.
notice that.
And then he
That's so
robs a Good
cool.
Time Liquor store. I was like, that's sick. Like I love shit like that. So cool little
Hey,
Easter
man,
egg.
put Benny Safdie in the next one.
Yeah, right.
Okay, you talking
should-
about that, and I was like, the Wachowskis did it first, though, putting two.
The albino twins.
Yeah. They just disappear and never
looks
go
cool.
back.
That's
Oh my god, that's so funny.
But sticking with Colin Farrell, I think what I heard him say in an interview was when he was discussing the character with Matt Reeves, he couldn't really picture how he was gonna like be the Penguin. It just didn't really make sense to him, and he said he felt like that was more on him as an actor than it was on Matt Reeves. He's like, because looking back on it, the script is incredible, and I felt like I got a lot out of only being in the 5 or 6 scenes that I was in, but that I think he really like ate up every scene.
I think
that
he did
was in.
too.
Like he owned those scenes.
Like I'm hungry for more of him.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and which we're gonna get
Exactly.
But what I really wanted to bring up was the look, and it almost felt reminiscent of Batman '89, how the Joker has to get like underground, like black market surgery because
Right.
he can't just go to a doctor or whatever,
Mhm.
and how we already have this established history now of the Falcone crime family like going to places that are not hospitals to get fixed.
Mhm.
So I wonder if he looks like that because of like a botched facial surgery.
Like a-
It's,
yeah.
similar to the Joker. You
Yeah,
know
like
what
he
I
got
mean?
cut up and they got bad stitches or something like that.
Because Matt Reeves wanted to keep everything in the movie as real, like as realistic as it could be in a heightened universe. So like someone like the Penguin doesn't feel out of place, even though he's like, I don't want to say deformed.
He doesn't
but
need to be
he's-
leaking black goo like Danny DeVito.
Exactly.
Yeah. But he needs to be a little, you know what I mean?
And I really like the mafia angle as well. Like my dad told me that was one of his favorite parts.
It's
He's like,
really
"Oh,
good."
It's like a mafia movie, bro. Like,
It is like it's so
That's
cool.
cool.
Like their lounge that they have in there, like the pool tables and all that. Like it's really cool.
Which is something that I for sure forgot to bring up last episode. That's been bugging me was John Turturro. I butcher his name all the time. I really like the way he acts ever since The Big Lebowski. Obviously, his range is enormous. I haven't seen too much of his stuff recently. I've seen him in Severance, which I really like.
he's in Do the Right Thing also. That's one of his best roles.
But I really liked him in this movie. He has so many little lines that he just does so well. And it
Yeah.
just shows the experience of him as an actor. I know people I kept tossing around, and then yesterday I looked at Gus when it happened when he goes Hippocratic Oath. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he just gives like a heavy laugh.
No, I agree. He did really good.
One other person I wanted to bring up was Peter Sarsgaard
Mm-hmm.
as the DA. I thought he gave a phenomenal performance as
He did.
well. The last thing I had seen him in before this was
did
he
do
was in
good.
The Lost Daughter recently because he's married to Maggie Gyllenhaal and he acts in that movie.
didn't
I
know
thought
that.
his performance though as the DA was just really solid, and I kind of felt like a range of emotions about his character because you see what he's going through and how trying to survive in a place as corrupt as Gotham is not as easy as you would think. And
Seems
yeah,
a little
he's-
stressful.
Yeah, he's supposed to be a stand-up guy and everything, but even in Gotham, the best people are brought down to the same level as everybody else. His performance when he is trapped in one of the Riddler's games, or what do you even call it, right? Like, if you haven't seen the movie yet, imagine the Riddler as
Saw type game,
as like
yeah.
Jigsaw.
Yeah.
He's more like
Jigsaw,
Jigsaw
yeah.
than he is anybody else. He's like a mix of Jigsaw and the Zodiac.
Yeah,
Killer.
honestly.
But I thought that Peter Sarsgaard really like just took that moment and used it as like, I'm gonna make this like my movie for 5 to 10 minutes. When he's trying to solve the riddles that the Riddler is giving him,
You got nothing.
I
You
loved
got
it. He has this
nothing.
line delivery where he's being told to like, how much does it cost for a bribe? And he's like, 10 grand. And then Batman's like, who? And even in his dying moments, he's like, he didn't ask me that.
He's
No,
like, I'm not gonna tell you who.
Yeah.
Like, no,
I just think
yeah,
he really
dude.
shows how deep the corruption goes in Gotham, and it still feels like by the end that was just surface level.
Yeah, true. That's what I wanted to say. Is that scene really goes to show like how deep some of these people really are in. Like, no, I'm just gonna die because they're gonna come after my family and stuff. Like, that's pretty gnarly, and that's real shit. So, I like that. I do want to throw it back to John Turturro really fast, just because I thought in the scene where Catwoman is like in the club and she has like the lenses on, right? I didn't even realize that was him at first because you see him through her lenses at first, and I was like, who is that? And he just kind of gave off like a vibe, you know what I mean? And then the reveal that it was him, I thought was really cool. I don't know if you want to talk about that scene, because I remember you brought up that you hadn't really seen anything like that in a movie.
Oh, yes. So Batman has these contact lenses that he uses as cameras. I think what the film was trying to subvert was the animated Batman and the comic Batman always having like the white shields over the mask. And even in The Dark Knight, when he's using the sonar, right? He has to wear like the eyelids over the mask. I thought it was so cool and it made it so much more analog, even though it's such a futuristic
Digital.
thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that Batman always blends well is like the old and the new, especially like with the noir aspects, but then the tech is like modern day or even futuristic stuff that we don't have now. But yeah, those contact lenses and watching the film like through a circular view and like that red tint that we have
Is really cool.
It reminded me of the first Terminator movie.
Yeah, exactly.
actually.
That's what I was thinking.
I saw a scene of that on Twitter and I was like, that's where I seen it.
Yep.
That's where I seen
exactly
it.
And I was
remind
going to
me of.
say that's how I know Peter Sarsgaard did a good acting in this film, because a lot of his performance comes through Zoe Kravitz's us looking with Batman through Zoe Kravitz's eyes of him talking to her, and it's through a red like.
Is that not the
Red
most
tint
detective
camera.
thing ever?
Yeah, it's
Right?
red.
I wait. You need to look at them longer. I need to get their faces. Like
we're and in that scene we're with Batman, but we're watching through someone else's eyes as all this important information is getting leaked. And like I can't think of anything that's more detective-y than that.
no, it's so cool. The anxiety is high in that scene because you're just like,
Definitely.
what's gonna happen?
The one thing I wanted to bring up that I didn't bring up last time too, just to see if you guys had noticed, a couple of people I had seen talk about this, is that in the funeral scene where Bruce Wayne is walking up and the guy stops him, and they're
Oh yeah.
Yes.
it's kind of like that same
the
guy
dude at the
is
end.
the end that
Yeah,
that
I'm
says,
Vengeance. That's
that's
him, yeah.
working with the Riddler.
Oh really?
That is the
I
same
didn't know
guy.
that.
And I didn't catch that the first time, and I went to go, like, someone brought it up, and then I looked out for it every single time, and I'm still a little confused if it's him, but everybody's kind of confirmed that it's him.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Because I can't, like, I guess, like, the way that he beats up his face,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
like, it's, like, red. I can't really seem to connect the two, like, me personally, visually, but everybody seems to say it is
I
them.
do think it is. And like I got that, like the fact that he has that interaction with him, and then when Bruce Wayne's walking in that scene, you have the other kid that kind of slips by the cop and he gets pushed back in line. You know what I'm talking about?
uh-huh.
And that kind of just, I don't know for a fact, but in my head, that's just like, those are the people that are behind Riddler. Like, you know what I mean?
That
Like,
makes
he already
sense.
has people that are following him and that are present, and like, you know what I mean? So that's just kind of what I got
Those
from
are all
that.
the dudes that are on the board.
Exactly.
basically.
At the end of the movie, that's kind
Out
of what
his,
I got.
What is it? What does the guy say? He has 500 views. No, 500 followers.
Real fringe types.
Yeah,
Real
they're all
fringe
fringe.
types. The Riddler is the niche micro celebrity that we should all aim to be, right?
Exactly.
That was something too that I wanted to bring up last time. I forgot, was that they asked Matt Reeves if obviously you have somebody who's like a Reddit god, right? Like talking about like
Reddit Lord.
and then you have like the insurrection that happened, and this movie was written before all that stuff, and he kind of talked about, did he maybe try to, like, he looked at that stuff happening in real life and should I change some things, you know? And then he said he didn't think it connected. Like, yes, they're connected in a way, but not enough where it deteriorated, where they were like, where he thought people would be like, oh, he wrote this to be a message, you know?
Yeah.
It's like he's like, I just thought it actually more would connect to real time, which is one of the most important aspects of any movie, is to connect it to the time that people are watching it. And I just thought that was interesting, because the villain is, that type of villain is very grounded in what we have seen in real life. So I think that's the stuff that works.
I mean, the Riddler gave off heavy school shooter vibes.
Yeah, no, for
right?
sure. Like it's scary because that's almost, he's a believable villain. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like it's scary, but damn.
One last thing I really wanted to talk about before I think we can kind of move off.
Yeah,
this
I think so,
pretty
too.
soon, is the costume one last time. I wanted to
Yes.
give credit to the people who designed the costume. It's David Crossman and Glenn Dillon.
Badass.
I think it's a very functional Batman suit. I don't think it's too many fluff and frills. Maybe with like Batfleck, we got too much tech.
Yeah.
Or you could even argue by the end of the Dark Knight that we have a little too much tech as well. I mean, the Dark Knight Rises. Sorry. I really like the suit. I will say I think I'm starting to get tired of the all black look. I mean,
I can see that.
I do want to see like a nice classic gray with the black. I think that really
Or
works.
gray and blue, huh?
Oof, yeah. I don't think they will though.
It won't
in
work.
this one.
With
Doesn't
the
seem to
yellow
work
bat,
as well.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
the yellow bat will never make
it won't
No.
work as well. I feel like in live action either.
I was actually watching a documentary about the Dark Knight trilogy last night, and Chris Nolan, one of his big selling points for him in the movie was like, how necessary is the yellow bat? Like, how much can I get away with? Do I have to have it? Because I don't really see it as functional. I think it's kind of a distraction.
I don't think it would work live action.
Yeah, and even now, it's not like I want a yellow one or anything like that, but I do want to see maybe. I'm more interested in the progression of the suit than I was when The Dark Knight came out.
I do think it would have been cool if his bat thing would have been red, like it was promoted.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like this middle, the same chest plate that we're talking about that ends up being a knife. I think it would have been cool if it was red, but that's coming from someone who loves Batman Beyond, and his
Yeah.
logo is red.
So cool.
So, I would like to see red be adjusted into there, maybe purple, but I feel like it's a little too late for that because I don't think they'll all of a sudden. I mean, they could, right? Like you said,
I mean, the
progressively
suits
change the
always
suit.
evolve.
that's always a big part of the movies is the changing of the suit from like movie to movie. I think so.
Cause yeah, I mean it'd be cool because there's him wearing there's so much stuff, man. There's him wearing the Hellbat suit like that. You could do all of those episodes. Of,
Yeah,
or
I definitely
scenes with-
think too with Robert Pattinson being a better Bruce Wayne going forward, and especially the environment of Gotham after the Riddler's attack is going to be a lot different. So I think that it will call for a techier Batman.
think so,
Actually,
too,
like, are we
yeah.
going to get Batman on a jet ski?
Yeah, right.
like if we get Mr. Freeze, obviously his suit has to evolve. Like, that suit's not going to do anything against a actual supervillain type character.
Yeah,
So hopefully, man.
I do like the suit though a lot in this
Yeah,
one.
it's great.
I think it's
I
one
think
of
it's
the
the
better
best
ones.
one.
It works really well. I think.
Do you like the Val Kilmer one better? I know a lot of people think that's like one of the
That's
best
actually
ones.
really. I like this one better, but it's a good like argument.
They
for
wasted that suit on
sure.
that fool.
Yeah, on the movie, I think I like him. I like Val Kilmer as Batman. I just do not.
Fair
like,
enough. The
like
movies are I'll give you that.
Because I was saying that if you put Val Kilmer in for Michael Keaton, I think the movies are even better. But that's not taking anything from Michael Keaton. I just think at the time that Val Kilmer was the Batman, Val Kilmer was on top of his game.
Yeah.
He'd already done Heat and stuff like that.
All right.
Yeah. Let's.
Well, we promised you guys. Well, we didn't promise, but we had joked about doing a month of Batman, and we're on like week 3.
You
talking
got
about
it.
Batman, so I think we've given you enough of that from us. It's time to move on, and we will start talking about some of the streaming movies we saw this week. So every movie that we're going to talk about from this point on is on a different streaming service. So I think you guys will be able to see them if you're interested. And I did want to start with one I watched on the previous Sunday, and it was Fresh.
Fresh.
Starring Sebastian Stan and Daisy Edgar Jones. And
Directed
by Mimi Cave.
Yep.
Directorial
I watched
debut,
this-
right?
I don't know, actually. I watched this before you guys. I really enjoyed this film a lot, and I'd like to hear what you guys think about it. And we'll talk about it for a few minutes.
I was surprised because you brought it up to me and I had not heard of the movie at all. So you brought it up to me and then
Let's stay spoiler free. Yeah.
okay, yeah. I'll keep it spoiler free. I hadn't heard about it. You told me about it. My girlfriend told me about it same day, and I was like, all right, like I'll check this out and see what happens. And I really enjoyed it. It caught me off guard. I didn't expect it to be what it was about, which I won't say because I don't want to ruin it. But it was a lot of fun. I thought that Sebastian Stan did a great job. Like I'm really not familiar with him other than like the Marvel movies
You know him
and
as the Winter Soldier.
and yeah, exactly. So, and it's always hard for me to gauge somebody when they play superhero in a movie like that, like, you know, as an actor, but I thought he did a phenomenal job. I thought Daisy Edgar Jones did a really good job too. It was a fun mix between like horror and comedy and camp, and it was a really good movie. And I thought it touched base on something that a lot of people, online dating, which is something that's very prevalent today. So I thought it was a really fun movie.
What about you, Ro?
I think fun movie is a good way to describe it. I don't know if I necessarily like the tone in this movie. My biggest takeaway from it was definitely like what you touched upon. To Sebastian Stan, I think best role that I've seen him in. Where it really made me think that he could do so much more deeper roles than I thought that he could.
He's getting a bag right now.
He
That's
gave
why
me.
he's-
Have you guys seen the show You, the Netflix show You?
Yeah.
He gave me heavy that kind of vibe. So yeah, he did a good job, dude.
There's just like a couple stuff in the movie that I think it was set up I was expecting more, and it never really gave it to me. It has a bouncing back to what we just talked about, like Batman has a PG-13 and this movie has a rated R, and I feel like they had the same amount of like, yes, there's some stuff, again, don't want to spoil too much. There's some stuff that gets a little bloodier, but not really.
Yeah.
And I feel like it doesn't take advantage of being a rated R. I don't know if it was marketed. I know that they picked up this movie before they had even showed it, Hulu. So I don't know if it was marketed at all. I did think some parts were funny, but I don't think that he was supposed to be funny. And I think that's some of the stuff that I kind of have issues with, the tonal changes. So I thought it was a good movie, but I felt like it was a diet version of a lot of other movies that I've seen. So it was
Fair enough.
I think that this movie has all the makings of a cult classic already, and I think that it gave me the same like feeling that an 80s movie does, where it's not like I loved it because it changed my perspective on cinema or that it made me feel like, whoa, this is what movies could be. I just felt like it gave me that same feeling that I like when I watch one of those movies that was considered not good.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, Sebastian Stan, I think, gives probably his best performance to date. And I think the more he gets away from doing Marvel and into doing more interesting roles than just playing the Winter Soldier, that he has a lot of range. And I think that he walks that same like Patrick Bateman line in this movie. Like if I had to characterize him, it's like Patrick Bateman with a little Hannibal Lecter, and there was another character that I had said earlier when we were talking off pod. Do you guys remember what I said?
I don't.
I might not have been here when you said it, but to me, you said Patrick Bateman. Sorry.
Oh, well, anyways, I just think that he really played like an unhinged type. And I don't want to say that I didn't know he had this in him, but I didn't. You know what I mean? Like, he hasn't really shown this to me unless I'm missing like a certain movie that he did. I thought Daisy Edgar Jones gave a wonderful performance as well. She's newer. I know she's a stage actor.
I don't know if I've ever seen her in anything.
I think this might be her first movie, and that she has other movies that are coming out already. But I thought she gave a good performance.
Yeah, I liked her. I thought she was convincing.
Dude, it's kind of hard to talk about this movie without really getting into it.
Yeah.
I do think that it was. Well, what? Did you watch the trailer at all?
No.
Okay, because I think what these streaming movies do sometimes is they give the trailer. The trailer doesn't give the movie enough credit. Like, it looked bad. And when I was watching the trailer, I was like, I don't think this is going to be that good. And I think it has a lot to do with how they edit these trailers.
Yeah.
But once I was into the movie, it only took me about 5-10 minutes before I was pretty much hooked.
Yeah, I liked it. And then, there's a good switch. And, because when I looked it up, I just looked at some of the pictures, like some shots online that I saw, and I was like, all right, this looks cool. But yeah, no, I liked it a lot. The ending to me was extremely satisfying. Like, this to me is almost like, it's like a movie that you can just throw on with your friends. Like, you guys want to watch something and you throw something on and it's enjoyable. Like,
yeah, I do like that it's a horror comedy. I feel like that genre is not done enough. Like, there's a lot to do. There's a lot that you can make funny about, like a horrible situation. And I think some of the better ones we've seen recently are like Ready or Not.
Yeah.
I've always kind of considered You're Next a horror comedy.
I think you could, yeah.
I mean, would you say something like The Evil Dead is a horror comedy? Or do you think looking back on it, it's seen that way more now than it was back in the day?
Probably more now. Because, like the first one is definitely a horror, and then the rest of they are pretty funny. Like, I would consider them horror comedies.
I mean, even now, too, the only other movie I could think of that is not similar, but is a horror comedy is that Dave Grohl one. Like
Studio 666. I still really do want to see that.
So
I know.
I feel like what Fresh is about, I don't want to say it.
Yeah, don't say it.
I think it exists on a spectrum of these other types of movies that are the same subgenre, and that it's just completely on the other side.
I think so,
because
too.
I saw people saying things like, "Oh, well, if you gave this movie to Julia Ducournau, or you gave this movie to any French director, that this could be like a lot darker and heavier
gnarly
movie."
fucking
But I don't think
Give
it's
it a
trying
Gaspar
to
Noé.
do that.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's the thing is that I
And
feel
20
like,
people watch it.
I feel like it's existing on the other side.
Yeah.
It's a more mainstream version.
It's
a more digestible.
It's
digestible version of this.
It's this movie on fucking Hulu. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is. Like,
It is what it is.
yeah. So
if you were to consider it to compare it to the slasher genre, it's more Scream than it is a giallo.
100%.
There you
Yeah,
go,
100%.
right?
Yeah, that's
Or
a good way to
it's
put
not Texas
it.
Chainsaw Massacre, it's Scream.
It's or it's like it's not that. It's Friday the 13th. I mean, no, Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's got the camp to it. It's not super serious.
It reminded me of like the Netflix a couple months ago. I mean, that was last year, I think. Now the Fear Street stuff.
Yeah.
And like it's in that range of stuff. Like, oh yeah, like it has good stuff to it, but there's this overall campiness to it that
It reminds me of just like a summer horror movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like something that comes out in the summer. Like, we're gonna fuck around and
I
have
would
some
have
fun
really
with
liked to
it.
see this in the theater.
It would have been fun to see in the theater. It really would have been.
I think another example I have of this is we're going to talk about After Yang, and what After Yang is about. It's in the same spectrum of like Blade Runner, but they're two different films. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they can exist on opposite sides, and you can watch After Yang and be like, I don't know, bro. I don't think that you really touched on it the same way Blade Runner did. And it's like, it's not trying.
It's not the same movie?
You can have movies that are about the same thing that are completely different.
That's a really good point.
And I think that's what Fresh was trying to do.
Yeah.
And was it successful? Was it not successful? That's anybody's
I think that's a
opinion.
perfect point, honestly. That's a
Yeah.
great way of putting it. Yeah.
So I stand this movie. I think it's super fun. I wonder how relevant it's going to be in 5 to 10 years. Just because of like the social media dating.
Yeah,
landscape
the online dating, yeah.
that we have now. Like, is that going to be more prevalent in 5 to 10 years, or is it going to be less, and people are going to look back at this time and be like, damn, that's what people were going through, or like these are the fears that people had about meeting a complete stranger. So I don't really have too much more to say about it because I'm just like really trying my best to not spoil
Yeah,
it.
no,
If you guys
yeah.
have a few more things to say before we move on, I would say now's a good
No, I don't think so. I think the cinematography almost caught me off guard. It looked a lot nicer than I thought it was going to look. Like, I think some of those streaming movies are all very like, some of them can be pretty cookie cutter and like nothing special, but I liked it.
That's where it bugged me, actually. It's funny.
You didn't like it?
There's way too many close-ups. Like, why am I getting so much forehead shots of her?
I don't.
Like, there's so many back and forth, and I was like, dude, come on. Like, enough where I noticed where I was like, oh, because you brought that up right now, and I was like, I
Interesting.
did have that as a point. I just had a closing. I found a nice little interesting poem that somebody, or a haiku, I guess it is. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6 lines, I think. Anyways, it goes, in what seems like a short time span, Daisy Edgar Jones falls for a man. They seem to mesh, keeping things fresh. It's safe to say she's a stan.
Love it. Love it.
Before we move off of it, actually, I did want to say that I really liked the aesthetic and the set design in this movie. I thought that the house was
really
really
cool.
cool looking. It felt like it had some homages to Ex Machina, actually.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I also just like the mid-modern, like, 70s.
It had good colors,
set that it
too.
had
Yeah.
Inside the upper level of his house.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It is her directorial debut.
Okay,
Mimika,
so-
yeah.
I'm not gonna say like, oh, well, give her some credit then, but if this is a new film, if this is a filmmaker who this is their first feature film, I do think that this is a satisfying movie, and I do think that they have an interesting future.
I'm gonna look out to see what she comes out
I
with.
would like to see what's next.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She
definitely.
has my attention. This is a first movie. That's a pretty good first
I
movie.
mean, dude, if your first movie isn't always going to be perfect, and when it is, that's how you know that you're
Yeah.
somebody who's a
Special.
special director. And not everybody is, but it's a serviceable movie. It's very fun, and it's on Hulu. Be like, so if you have nothing to watch, I think that Fresh is something you can throw on and have a good time. You're gonna have fun. You're gonna be grossed out. You're gonna be
Exactly.
it's gonna be a little intense. It's gonna be a little quirky, even.
Yeah,
I would say.
definitely.
Like, there's some things in there that you just can't believe.
Like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Like,
I would anticipate that. I'm hoping in this, what we're going to talk about it, but I'm hoping this is the spectrum where at least X is. Like, I
Oh,
hope
yeah,
this is the
that's
same
a
way
good
I feel.
point.
Like, I hope at worst it's this, and it can only go up from being like this. But
Yeah.
just like this movie, also is the same way I wanted to feel about Black Phone.
right.
Like it's
I'm excited for that
right
movie
here.
too.
Yeah, okay. If I had to elevator pitch Fresh and someone said, okay, in a couple sentences, tell me what Fresh is. Silence of the Lambs meets Beauty and the Beast. Like,
Yeah, all right, let's go.
but with a comedic twist.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
And take what you will from that, but I think Fresh is definitely one to watch. So that one's on Hulu. we can move on from that. But I had a really good time.
Yeah, it was a good one. I enjoyed it.
So I wanted to talk about this movie. It's actually the first time we're talking about a Disney movie on the pod, I think.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I don't think we've talked
Well, I
about
mean,
anything.
Indiana Jones is now.
Well, yeah, but that it don't count. It ain't the
That
same.
one doesn't really count. I checked out Turning Red this week.
What'd you think?
I really enjoyed this
Yeah,
movie a lot.
I've heard really good things, but I haven't checked it out yet.
Do
So
you guys know anything about this movie, really?
I think I know like why she turned red
Mm-hmm.
or like why she turned into the animal. I just read like the synopsis on it and I
So
don't know
she
much more.
turns. She's a 13-year-old girl who turns into a red panda when she gets too excited, but it's really symbolism for becoming a woman.
Yeah.
Like I'll leave it there because I think if you want to see, I don't want to spoil a movie that you can just go see on Disney Plus. I thought this movie was like really adorable, even though it is about something that I guess could make you uncomfortable if you're a freaking baby.
it's a part of life.
Yeah,
Like it's part of life.
right?
I think it's probably why they make the movie, you know, to normalize
Exactly.
it.
Yeah, which I think is good.
It's
that
a good
they
thing,
actually made
yeah,
a movie like this
For sure.
Sandra Oh is in it. She plays the mother in this film. I thought she gave a really good performance. I was like, it felt so familiar to me when I was listening to her talk, and then I was like, who is that? And it was Sandra Oh, and I was like, nice. I think this movie has some really interesting visuals. I saw some people saying they didn't like the animation style.
That's what I was gonna say. It looked like it was gonna be really nice. Like
Animation people are very finicky about, oh well, this is good animation and this is not, and I think it's all perspective.
yeah,
I mean, there's some shows like the Clone Wars where I literally don't watch it because I don't like the animation style, but that doesn't mean it's not a good show.
right.
This movie is a Pixar movie that's been chopped by Disney. I don't know if you guys know.
I don't.
this.
They keep
Yeah.
chopping all the Pixar
Yeah.
movies. Pixar's getting pissed. I guess.
Yes.
I was reading about that.
Do you guys remember like maybe I don't know if it was like a decade ago already, but Pixar was going to separate from Disney
Mm-hmm.
because of the creative differences between the studios. I don't know why Disney keeps trying to just destroy their own movies. It
Because
doesn't
the
make any
last
sense
they
to me.
chopped Soul last time too, and
Soul,
and that movie was incredible too.
Raya and the Last Dragon didn't
Right.
get that much theater time. Luca didn't get
Luca,
any theater
yeah,
time.
That was
a big one. I saw people were
And
upset about.
especially with Luca and Turning Red. You know, Pixar is getting very existential for a minute,
Mhm.
and I think Luca and Turning Red are movies about kids being kids, which I think is a good thing because I've seen some critics, and this is like the dumbest thing I've seen in a while. It's like, I'm not in this movie. This movie's not about anything I can
So
understand.
how can I relate to this movie?
Yeah.
And how can I enjoy
And
it?
It reminded me of something that Roger Ebert said a long time ago, and it was that movies are empathy machines. And us as humans, we all live our own lives, and we have our own personal views on things. But the point of a movie is that it can help you understand what people are going through who are
sure.
not like you.
For sure.
So to watch a movie about a 13-year-old girl who's going through hormonal changes and becoming a woman, yeah, okay, maybe it's not about you and you don't feel seen or whatever.
Yeah, it's
but
like quit.
this is a way for people to try to understand these
Yeah.
things in a more digestible way. Like,
And I respect that. Like, you know, quit being a sociopath and put yourself in her shoes for a minute. Like, just watch the damn movie.
there was some website that published this article of a reviewer just like shitting on the movie because, well, I'm not in this movie and I don't understand this movie and this movie isn't made for me. And it's like, you know, I don't watch many movies that I think are made for me. You know? what
Yeah,
I
like
mean?
Indiana Jones. Like, that's not me. Rand, that's
Bro,
not
you're
me.
not an archaeologist. You shouldn't
Yeah,
be
like-
watching Indiana Jones.
I'm also not a feudal Japanese lord, but Rand's the shit. Relax.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. It's set in 2002, actually, so
Okay.
it gave me heavy nostalgia.
actually pretty
vibes from
cool.
being
I
a
didn't know
little
that.
Kid.
That's cool.
There's a boy band that plays a pretty prevalent part
Oh,
in this,
really?
which gave me just like I was a kid who liked NSYNC.
Of
so
course.
It just reminded me like it was nostalgia for people who are a little older than us, I would say. But if you were in that early 2000s age range, you definitely
You'll get it.
you'll definitely get some of the things in this movie. I thought it was a little more mature too because it's about 13-year-old kids who are going into high school.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that I thought it was a nice touch for Pixar and Disney to make a movie about this age range because it's either little kids or it's like up. It's like they're 1,000 years old.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Your fucking car.
Nice.
Good chow.
But yeah, I hope you guys check out Turning Red. I think it's definitely one to watch. I think Pixar's kind of back on a hot streak. I liked Luca. I liked Soul.
Yeah.
I like this movie a lot as well. So Disney's been doing a lot of shit things recently, but this is one that they got right.
Pixar's always had my attention, so
That's true.
Yeah.
So we can move off of that, but I just wanted to shout out Turning Red. It's actually the first animated movie we've talked about on the pod. So I hope this is opening the door to us talking about more animated stuff, because I would love to do
never opposed.
Perfect. I think it's time we talk about After Yang.
Yeah, I haven't seen this movie, so I'm curious to see what you guys have to say.
Okay.
Ro, you want to start? Because I'm a little tired after my rant.
you take that, right?
Drink some water.
So after Yang came pretty out of nowhere in terms of how A24 just all of a sudden was like, this is coming out. And I know it's because of Sundance. They picked it up after Sundance. Colin Farrell's in this. We talked about him having a really good week. He's really good in this movie. He stands out to me. The whole cast is really good. But basically,
Who else is in it?
he's the biggest star, but we have Jodie Turner-Smith.
Okay.
And then the other two actors I think are
Justin Min plays the character Yang.
Okay.
I think he's an up-and-coming actor.
That's cool.
I was gonna read like the synopsis of what it's about, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? Actually, Haley Lou Richardson is also in this movie. She's been in a few things that I've seen. I think she gave a nice performance.
Oh, yeah.
And also, I wanted to talk about Sarita Chowdhury. I'm not exactly sure how to say her name, but it's the mom from The Green Knight.
Oh, okay.
So it was nice
Cool.
to see her in another movie.
Yeah, that's
as
cool.
well. But do you have the synopsis, Ro?
She's in this?
Yeah. She plays.
Oh,
one of the
shit. Oh,
museum,
yeah.
What would you call him? She works at the museum.
Yeah,
Okay.
now I remember. Okay, but yeah, the synopsis. When his young daughter's beloved companion, an android named Yang malfunctions, Jake searches for a way to repair him. In the process, Jake discovers the life that has been passing in front of him, reconnecting with his wife and daughter across a distance he didn't know was there.
Sounds so good.
So what I think was really cool about this movie is that it's in the future. It's a sci-fi film, but it doesn't bank off of that very much. It's very subtle in the way that it shows you it. Like where they live and how they transport, and the kid being an android. Those are like the small little things, but the film is beautiful. There's so much color to it. One of my favorite things is like the way they drive around in what looks like a bubble type of car.
Yeah.
And they just get driven around, and just that's like just general things that I really loved about this movie.
I think the sci-fi aesthetic of this movie is on the soft
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi side. It's not like Dune or Blade Runner, where every single aspect of it is
and
futuristic.
that probably goes in like what you were saying earlier, like it exists in this realm without focusing on, like, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Kind of like what I was saying about the like Blade Runner After Yang comparison
Mm-hmm.
of like them existing on the same spectrum. I think this movie, if you wanted to try to understand what it looks like without having seen anything, if you've seen the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, it's that kind of sci-fi.
Like a subtle future.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it's very subtle. It kind of gives off like like a utopia vibe, where it's like
Yeah,
a future
it
where
does.
everything is good, because I mean, it has to be. Colin Farrell plays a tea salesman in this movie. He owns a tea store, and that makes me think that we must live in a future.
He must be doing all right.
We can survive owning a tea store.
And he has a nice house, so it's a really nice house.
That sounds great.
The subtleness of the sci-fi, I think, takes a backseat here because of the director Kogonada, this is my first film from them.
This is only his second movie.
So I've heard a lot of good things so far from the first one. I was gonna say this seems to take the backseat because the main parts of this movie are like loving life, really like seeing things where they count, like family connections, memories, and then just humanizing what I think is one of my favorite topics or themes of movies and sci-fi is humanizing things that are not supposed to be humanized, and how as a human we sometimes take for granted stuff that any other species does not actually have. And if the one time that if you were to create something as humans to give them the experience of a human, what they would appreciate. And I think that film, just like my favorite Blade Runner, does such a good job of humanizing situations and memories that it really makes you reflect as a person and be like, damn, like I take things for granted.
Appreciate the things that you have. Sounds really good.
Yeah, it's definitely an intimate movie. Like, it feels very meditative as well. Like, that you're going through Colin Farrell, like the grief that he's going through, because it's very subtle. You don't really know how he feels about Yang until later on throughout the movie, once he kind of realizes how much he took Yang for granted and what Yang did for the family. How much can I say about this movie for
Not
you?
giving too much.
Well, because Nate hasn't seen it, and
Exactly.
like I feel like there's some things that we can say that aren't too much of a spoiler. It's just
Yeah, go
setting
for it.
up
I'm
the
down.
movie.
Go for
But
it.
so Colin Farrell and Jodie Turner-Smith are a family. They're husband and wife, and they adopted a Chinese baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this future, there's a company called Brothers and Sisters that creates androids of the same race or culture as your baby, so they can have some kind of connection to
Interesting.
Their
it's like
culture.
to have a connection to their culture. So Yang is a culture bot
Very interesting.
because Colin Farrell and Jodie Turner-Smith are an interracial couple, and they have this baby who's Chinese, and neither of them are Chinese, so they feel this need to kind of not have her missing out on who she actually is.
And it seems like there's not much, like, it doesn't seem for some reason that there is many Chinese people, which is why it seems to be that there is like a culture.
Yeah, right. That is true. Even though the movie has a heavy like the set design is very like Asian influenced. I don't know exactly if it's all Chinese influenced, so I don't want to just start throwing things around.
Yeah, exactly. It's true.
Oh, it's all Chinese.
Generalizations.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to make a
Asian, yeah, it's
generalization here, but it is very heavily influenced by Asian culture. But you don't really see too many other Asian characters in the world besides Yang and the daughter. And Yang and the daughter are very connected. So when he malfunctions, Colin Farrell has to go on this long, multi-day journey to try to figure out how he can like fix him and make his daughter happy again. But it's more like it kind of hits you in that same way that Pig did, where it's like, no, this is a movie about suffering and loss and grief, not about fixing something. And sometimes you can't fix these things, and you kind of just have to like get through it and learn to live. Damn, it sounds sad, but like live with this like hole now in your heart. You know what I mean?
It's part of life. Yeah.
And it's definitely a sad movie. I don't know if that's going to turn some people off, but I do think that it is very, it'll feel very familiar to people who have gone through these kinds of things, even if it's not, we don't have androids.
I mean,
But
we all know what loss is. Yeah.
yeah.
And just visually there's so many, it just looks really cool. Without giving too much away, there's a scene where Colin Farrell puts on these glasses, and then just certain things happen when he puts on these glasses, and it just looks so cool. And then the other part that really stood out to me is when they FaceTime each other.
Oh, yeah. Imagine like the holodecks from like Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
Where,
like the palm holders.
Yeah, like they literally like
That's
pop
sick.
up. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
So the futuristic stuff is very cool.
And then the way that it looked when they were on FaceTime, do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's like a fantasy. It looked like they were I don't even know how to describe it.
I ever seen.
Yeah, like it just looked glamorized. Like it's mystical is the word that I would use. Like it looks like a fairy tale, and there's this is a movie like came out of nowhere. I really would have loved to watch this in the theater. Can't recommend it anymore. Honestly, it was really really good.
I think my favorite set piece that was in the movie was like how you talked about the car, and the car being more like a moving living
Yeah.
room. You know what I mean? But that, what would you say? Like in the back seat, you know how there's like you have the seats in the back, and then there's kind of like not a shelf, but there's room to keep things back there. Like that in their car, it's like filled with plants. So like there's like a bunch of like succulents.
That
and
sounds
other
pretty
plants.
cool.
So like that whole mix of like nature with the futuristic stuff, I always like
Always.
that.
Yeah.
Because I always like the idea of the more futuristic we get, the more we return to having like more nature in our lives
Exactly.
and realizing how important it is. Like they literally have a giant tree in the middle of their house because they have like an open floor.
That's really
plan.
cool.
So I just really enjoyed that look about the movie.
And that's what makes it feel like a utopia. Like the fact that, we record in here with a bunch of plants. It makes it always kind of more lively. And it just has that tone to it. Like there's something, this family's going through a tragedy, but the whole world seems very colorful or very intermixed, like Gus just said, with this foliage, but then this new technology and values still, doesn't matter what era you are in, right? Values are values. And I think that's one of the biggest takes away from the movie. And I would recommend it.
Have
Yeah.
you seen The Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams, where he plays
No.
a robot that like lives through his family's whole life?
I haven't seen it.
It really reminded me of that movie. I don't know. I haven't seen that movie since I was very small, so I can't speak to like the quality comparisons, but it did remind me of that. And I think another thing that this movie touched on that I haven't really seen in too many movies, maybe others have, is like what it would be like to see someone's life through a different, like to see someone's life through their eyes. honestly, the Batman is the closest I can think of where
That's the part that
Right?
they reminded me of each other. Yeah.
yeah, is just like seeing someone else's life and seeing it through their eyes, and how much more compassion you could have for somebody when you really see what someone else has gone through. I do think too that this movie, it's about the family coming together like after this loss, which I do think tends to happen sometimes in real life. It brings people closer together. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about it too much more, but I really recommend After Yang. I know you're
Yeah, I'm gonna
check
watch
it
that
out,
probably tonight,
and
honestly.
I hope the people listening check it out as well.
It sounds really good.
It's one of Colin Farrell's best performances, and I always think Colin Farrell gives great performances in roles where he's supposed to be subdued. Not that he can't do the bombastic, loud stuff, because we know with the Penguin he absolutely can. But the way he carries himself in movies like this and The Killing of a Sacred Deer,
That's what I was about to bring
Lobster,
up.
I think that's where he thrives the best in really conveying those emotions without saying anything. I mean, Colin Farrell's one of our best actors.
He's phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, Colin Farrell, just keep pumping him out, dude, because I can't get enough of it right now. And I think this like past half decade, he's really been on a hot streak.
Yeah, he's the shit. I really do like Colin Farrell.
And he's been around for so long too, right?
He has.
So I just think that he's been there, done that, and he's still picking interesting roles, which I really appreciate, because he could just be doing more movies like Grindelwald and Artemis
Saints.
Fowl and things like that. You know, what I mean?
Artemis Fowl.
God.
So
Oh,
he
God.
dips and dives out of both worlds, but I do think he's a lot more comfortable in the indie, quote unquote, heavy movie.
Yeah.
I need him in
Realm.
Dune though.
Dune
2.
Put him in
I need
Dune.
him
Put
in Dune
everybody
2.
in Dune.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Put us in
yeah,
Dune.
I want to be in Dune.
Can I be a Sardaukar
I'm already
warrior?
I'm already in Oppenheimer. Huh?
Yeah, dude, they cast us in Oppenheimer. We play guys who get blown up by the bomb.
But yeah, After Yang, I definitely want to go check out Kogonada's other movie, Columbus. Haven't
Yeah,
seen
it's
it yet.
Stephen Yeun. You know what? One thing I want to say about Kogonada is that he was a video essayist before he was a director. So
You're telling me there's hope?
one of us.
There's
one
hope?
of us. One of us.
What would you guys rate this movie?
I gave it a 4, but I mean, I might give it a 5 the next
Yeah.
time I watch
Yeah, I
it.
gave it a 4 too.
4? Solid.
Like it's it could easily could be a 5.
So
It's
Oh,
one-
I did want to say before we moved on from this, though, that it is based on a collection of short stories, and that they did use the Yang story, but I guess they took quite a few aspects from some of the other stories throughout. And that another interesting thing I saw was that one of the reasons this movie really stood out, or this story stood out to the director, was that he said when he was a little boy, he used to sit there on the floor and like think about that there was a time when I didn't exist, and there's going to be a time when I don't exist again. And just like that existential
I was
dread
gonna say,
as a
yeah.
little kid, and that it's just something that stuck with him his whole life. So this movie was just something that was in his wheelhouse, and he felt very passionate about. And I think that he conveyed those emotions in a very beautiful way.
Yeah.
Honestly.
stuff like that usually makes the best movies, I feel like.
Yeah,
Stuff
like,
that's close to the director's
it's
heart.
personal.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, and that makes sense why it also feel like it resonates so much.
Yeah,
That makes-
definitely. I mean, I kind of feel like maybe the Yang character, even though it's not a character he created, is kind of like a
Reflection on him.
stand-in, or like a reflection of Kogonada's feelings on life.
Exactly.
So-
And that's why it works so well. You know?
Yeah, that's on Showtime. So yeah, we've did Hulu had Fresh, Disney has Turning Red, and
Showtime.
After
has
Yang
After
is
Yang.
on Showtime. So there's definitely a lot of movies to watch this week, and we do have one more. And this is
Another
the one that
streaming
we
site.
thought we were going to do a whole episode on, but it's not that this movie doesn't deserve a whole episode. It's just that this was a really good week for movies.
Yeah. Yeah, for real.
So I do think it's time we get to this movie. This movie has been teased before. It was on Roe's top 10 list. It took us this long to watch it. So if we can finally watch it, it means you guys can as well, because it's on HBO.
HBO.
Max. So we're going to talk about Drive My Car next.
Skirt.
The hype is real.
Yes,
The
it is.
movie is real. It's finally here. It's award season. This movie is getting award nominations out the wazoo.
Yeah, honestly, like this is probably the most hype movie I've seen in a minute. Like besides the Batman, probably. Like
Yeah.
I've seen this movie been getting hype for months. So,
So how did you guys feel about this movie? Actually, Ro, do you want to go first, because you saw this movie first?
Yeah.
You had the most time to sit with it.
So I think this movie is a masterclass in acting. I think I could see why people the hype is real, as you guys have said. Rewatching it again after a couple of months, it reminded me the first time that I was watching it, I felt like it was almost a complicated film in the terms of like the emotions that it had and what it was trying to convey and the way that it did it. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up, because now I can to connect, is that this has a 40-minute basically what's the
prologue.
word? Prologue. Yeah, that's the word I was thinking. 40-minute prologue. And so did Fresh. Fresh had a
Like a 35.
35-minute prologue. This the reason I bring it up though is to compare them, but in this story it just does such a good way of basically directing you the way that Ryusuke, right? Is Hamaguchi?
Yeah, Ryusuke Hamaguchi, the director.
Wanted you to like see his like themes for this movie, as I wanted to say. So again, I just think this movie is a masterclass in storytelling, and also there's like visually it's really nicely shot. Like I really want to, and not a bunch of movies have done this, but it really made me want to visit Japan. And obviously the through all of these months that we've talked about all these movies, the Red Sob has stuck with me, and now you guys know why the Red Sob has
It's
stuck
so
with me.
cool.
So did you guys know that this movie is based on a collection of short stories as well?
I didn't know.
So I do think that's interesting that the last two movies that we've talked about are not original, because it's just the IP landscape that we live in, right?
Exactly.
Like even the best movie of the year, quote unquote, is based on someone else's story.
Yeah.
It's just I've talked about spectrums a lot on this episode, but I feel like this movie is on the opposite end of the spectrum for what you can do with IP.
Yeah.
Even though I feel it's disrespectful to call short stories IP, but it kind of is nowadays.
I mean, The Green Knight is a short story.
Yeah.
The original IP.
Yeah.
But it worked. You know, this movie works for me. I think maybe I enjoyed this movie the most out of the three of us. I just thought when I was like, once that prologue hit, or like I realized what was going on, it gave me the same feeling like The Empty Man did, where I was like, oh fuck. That was just the beginning. That was just the backstory.
Yeah.
And
That's a good comparison.
you know what this movie is about is a person who is going through a traumatic loss of his wife, and it's a lot more complicated than that. I don't know how much I really want to say, but he ends up meeting a woman who is his chauffeur, who is also going through a huge loss in her life, and it's about two people connecting through loss and getting to know each other. It's definitely not a relationship that blossoms quickly. It takes time, and I think that's one of the reasons this movie is so long. I think this movie is super ambitious. It's not so much that it's like a really complicated movie. I just think that what Hamaguchi was going for is a hell of a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's tackling a lot of different things in one movie, and he's had a really busy year. He directed
Wheel of Fortune, right?
Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. He directed and wrote that, and he also wrote that movie Wife of a Spy that came out as well.
I didn't know that.
So a 3-movie year, and people are saying that these 3 movies are like 3 of the best movies.
Some people
of
said
the
that
year.
they like Wheel of Fortune better. I just haven't been able to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem we always have with these international movies, is that it's hard to get a hold of them. But that's why I'm happy that this movie's on
Finally.
HBO, and why we're recommending it as well, is because I definitely think if you're into quote unquote movies, that this is one to give a watch to.
This is definitely like, you know, air quote cinema. Like that's what this
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And like I think I wanted to love this movie more than I did. I really, really liked it. I don't know if I loved it.
It's not the Batman.
No, I mean it's yeah, of course not. But like I felt the runtime, I really did. But I also think that it probably needs to be this long to be the movie that it is. So I don't know. Like I've seen a lot of people talk that they didn't really like the 40-minute prologue type thing. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie, getting to see the relationship and like how he was dealing with everything. Like I won't get too much into it, but I really liked it. I really liked the relationship that developed between him and the chauffeur. I thought that was really good. And I did enjoy a lot of the individual characters. But I think I did feel like towards the end of this movie that a lot of the characters were almost just like very similar and the same, and they just became a speaking point for the writer and the director, if that makes sense. Like everybody's just spewing out these really big, like, you know, deep philosophical self-reflection, like, and it's cool. But there was a scene like where, what's his name? Takasuki, like he's basically saying like, he's like, I am nothing, I have nothing on the inside, and then proceeds to lay out this 5-minute long, like super deep and like detailed, like self-reflection. It's just kind of like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, I see
so
what you
stuff
mean.
like that kind of took me out of it, I guess. The movie's absolutely beautiful. I know we talked about it, the interweaving of the play and
Uncle Vanya.
Uncle Vanya and the actual story. Like I really like that. There's not a whole lot of payoff, I think, in this movie.
That's a good way to
Like
put
what
it.
you would think
Yeah.
about in terms of payoff. It's more of like coming to terms and a realization rather than an event. Which that's nothing wrong with that. But I do feel like for a 3.5 hour, like not 3.5 hour, for a 3 hour movie, I did kind of feel it. I watched it twice just to be sure that I wasn't like, whatever, but I liked it. I didn't love it. So
Nice.
I will say that one thing I wanted to bring up after what you said, the now that it's available on HBO, and I do think that's why we get mad that the Academy sometimes doesn't give any love to certain movies, because that's why it's on HBO Max. It's the fact that it got nominated. There's so many other movies that we might not have seen this year from any other country that we probably won't find out about because we have no access to them. And when the Academy highlights certain movies, then here in America they get put on streaming sites, or we get access to them. And I think that's just bouncing back up to how important it is for why people care about the Academy. Even though I know it's stupid to be like they didn't get it right, but when they do get it right, or when they do at least nominate the good movies, very much good comes of it. And I do think like Parasite being mainstream, and now this movie being mainstream, I do like the doors that it's opened. I do think Asian cinema has been more appreciated in like the beginning of the 2020s.
Yeah, the past
True.
couple of years. I
It's
mean,
true.
definitely. The three movies I watched on Friday were all about Asian or Asian American culture.
Mhm.
So, like,
Yeah.
After Yang, Turning
Cool.
Red is about Chinese Americans, and then Drive My Car is a Japanese
Yeah.
movie. So I really felt like this is like that's a beautiful thing, is to see three movies in the same day that are about a culture that's not mine, which is like, I'm Mexican and I never get to see anything reflecting me in movies or cinema. But so to see other people get it is nice, and for it to also not be like to not only be made because it's like traumatic and horrible, like that's another thing, is like
Yeah.
I'd rather not be represented
Yeah,
than
exactly.
to just like make these horrible, awful movies, that are about like really super ugly things that happen in the world. And it's
Yeah.
like, anyways, but I did think that Drive My Car was a fantastic film. I thought it was really well acted.
Yes.
That scene that you're talking about, like where the character is saying that he's like empty on the inside, and then he gives this
it's
long,
a beautiful scene.
I thought that was the best acted scene that I've seen in a movie, like in recent memory, because it's not that, like I said, it's not that this movie is a complicated story, but
It's not a
the
complicated
different
story.
levels of
It's the emotion.
like manipulation and like trying to cut someone down and then them cutting you down, and like the rivalry we have between the main character and this actor in his play. It feels a lot more like spiteful than it actually is. You know what I mean? You're like, what kind of games is he playing with this guy? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and maybe that's why you felt it didn't pay off.
Maybe.
Like you thought it would, because it does seem very aggressive in like the most subtle way. You know what I mean?
I know
Like,
what you
there's
mean.
a lot
That
of
tension sits there between them
Yes,
for so
throughout the
long. 'Cause
entire movie.
You're almost waiting, like, what is he going to do to get back to him? And then that's what's also, like, weird is the character has accepted things that you as the audience member has not accepted. And whether he's come to terms with that acceptance is I think what the movie is basically about. And the same thing with this driver. And I think one of my favorite things about this movie that's going to stand out for a long time is how therapeutic the red car is. And like, he may be this person outside of the car that different people know for different reasons, but inside the car, he is still connected to her. There's that cassette tape every single time that he uses to prepare for it. And there's this really cool scene where it's driving. It's like the wheel of the car, and then it turns into the spool of the cassette, and they just kind of fade into each other. And I think it just kind of really, like, that theme in the movie is very prevalent in terms of he can't really come to grips with still letting her go. And it's because they had this very, very unique relationship. And whether if it's a creative relationship, it seems like that they had, but they really loved each other, and he can't let go of that, and it makes sense. We saw, because of the prologue, it makes sense as the viewer. Like we saw this very interesting dynamic, and I think that's why this movie works so well.
I think the runtime is it helps more than it hinders the movie, because I think that this movie is very engrossing, and I think it's very like, just like After Yang, it's a meditative movie. I even think that this movie, even though it's 3 hours, is very precise and even mathematical at some points, of like the precision between this scene turning into this scene, and like what is being like shown, and then what is actually happening. Like there's a lot of reading between the lines in this movie. I think this movie is probably like the most adult movie I've seen in a long time, because it deals with such heavy, mature subjects that most people are not going to go through, or would never have the grace to go through something like this. You know what I mean? Like it really tests like your maturity level, like as a person, because when you think about this movie, like if this was happening to you, like I don't think that the average person would handle it this way.
No, absolutely. I honestly think that kind of maybe took me out of it a little bit. And I get it. Like it is what it is, but I'm just like, is that true love? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Those are the questions that it raised for me. And is I almost just thought of it as more sad than beautiful. Like, I don't want to spoil it, but the main thing that he's going through, I was almost like, this is just really sad to me, rather than like, this is a beautiful love that is endearing and truthful. I'm like, no, this is a love that was based on a huge lie. And like, it was something was going to come out and they never had the opportunity. So it made me really sad. Like, honestly.
I don't want to spoil too much, but I was bouncing off what Gus said. I think the interweaving there of like reading under the lines is very, very well done, with like what I said with the Uncle Vanya thing. Like it just seems like sometimes when he's doing the readings for Uncle Vanya, he's talking about what's actually happening to him.
Yeah.
And that's where it's done so well, because you could mess that up so bad by trying to like for example, like Romeo and Juliet, right? Like you always going back to the original text but trying to make it now. It's like, fuck,
it could come off really cheap,
translation, or it could come off very corny or just bad done. But this movie executes that so well, and there's not very many movies that have executed that very well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't go on enough about how ambitious I feel like this movie is, like on a technical level, on a storytelling level. Big balls.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean? Like for sure.
Because it's multilingual. It's a play within a movie. It's this complicated romance that these two people had. It's this 40-minute prologue. I just think that this movie is kind of like a like the guy who made like Hamaguchi, like that this must have been a huge sigh of relief, like to get this off of his chest. Do you know what I mean? Like I felt like there must be a lot of personal things going on in this movie. You know what I mean? Because it feels so personal. It doesn't feel like just somebody who wasn't passionate about this made this. Like it seems like somebody who really had something to say on these types of subjects.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys have much more to say about it, really?
I will say, just because we're talking about this week movies that we saw, I saw a bunch of other movies we didn't talk about this movie, and we didn't talk about here that are older. I had seen Harakiri, which is Kobayashi movie, and the reason I bring it up is I think this is, if I'm remembering correctly, he's on his top 5 on Hamaguchi's list for his favorite directors, and he's a Japanese director too. But the movie Harakiri is obviously about just like a samurai story about suicide, but it's deeper than that. And I feel like this is the same. Like Japanese cinema does such a good job of, maybe it's because as outsiders we don't understand Japanese culture, but their strictness of how they say stories and the depthness to their stories is very unique to any other type of cinema that I've seen. It could be a story about, and I brought it up to Gus yesterday. We went to go watch the Batman. Like I like High and Low. High and Low has some of the same elements that the Batman has, and I think inspired it. But the way that Japanese cinema, due to the way the society is ran and the strictness and like this like rules that it has, the way that it gets portrayed is just, they do such a good job of it going deeper than what the surface idea of the theme is. But they also still well execute the surface idea of it.
It's a patient movie as well.
Exactly.
Like, and I think that is one of the cultural differences as well.
Patience,
like,
yeah.
This movie would, if this was made in the United States or was a movie about people in America, that this movie would not be like this.
Exactly.
Like, I do think that that's one of the big cultural differences.
I agree.
That it's just like, it's seeing this situation in a way that we probably never would here. You know what I mean? And I think that might be another reason people kind of feel differently about it as well, is because maybe for us it's such a thing where you're like, nah, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Fuck
no,
this.
yeah, like
You know what I mean?
that's where I think I stand. Like I want to give the movie all the credit for being like you said, like the director phenomenal, the acting phenomenal, cinematography phenomenal, and like you said, like the ability to really convey this super deep and complex emotional relationship that he has with his wife and that he's dealing with. Like, I don't know a lot of movies that do that and that bring that kind of, idea to the surface. And I mean, I think that it works. I think it just makes me feel something different than what a lot of people are discussing and maybe what he was going for. I think it just makes me feel a little bit different. But it's a phenomenal movie. Like I said, like this is one of the best movies out. Like it
Yes,
really is.
yes.
Yeah.
Easy. I just don't know if it's one of my personal favorites out, but I know I will eventually revisit this movie and I hope that my view changes. So.
I think the fact that surface level you're just not dismissing it shows how good the movie is.
Yeah, no,
if-
because it like surface level, obviously, but like that's what I really do like is the depth of the movie, and that's why I really like the prologue. Is because you get to see like what's going on in his head, but then you see this interaction and this chemistry, and you kind of like, okay, maybe I do kind of get this, but it's just like it's just
Because
different.
up until a point in the prologue, and like 30 minutes in, you're like, this is a really good like couple. And like they
got this
really
unlocked.
have, like this is a creative, like this must be ideally the best
I
couple to
want
be in.
this.
Yeah, and then and then even that, like progressively how you see the reveal and how he reacts to the reveal, that's how you know, be like, this is almost normal, right? Because it's like there's no way he just quiet, don't want to give out too much, but
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, if in any other movie that's not well executed, you by that scene would be like, oh, I'm done.
No,
You're like,
yeah,
I don't-
for
I
sure.
don't
You'd be
care
like,
about
"Fuck
her.
this,"
She
but
could die, I don't give a-
yeah, exactly.
But, like,
the fact that it keeps me in the movie and like I am interested and I am curious and see like where's this gonna go and how is he gonna deal with this, and the more that it unravels, like I was very interested. It's a really good movie.
So I think we can talk about this before we finish. Is that it's not too much of a spoiler because it's in the synopsis, but this director is dealing with the loss of his wife, and there are some things that went unsaid between them before she passed, and I do think that that's why I think that the prologue is so important, is because this is not something you typically see in movies. We were joking before.
Yeah.
It's like dead wives in movies be like, and it's like them on the beach with their hair
Yeah.
blowing and like,
she was my angel.
I love you, honey.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you get like movies like that, like John Wick.
That's American,
or
you know,
Shutter
to do
Island.
that.
Yeah. So just to memorize them in this way that they weren't actually. You
Yeah.
know? And I think Drive My Car shows you the reality of these.
It's a very honest movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's not really something you're used to seeing.
No.
And I do think that prologue is super important, and it's
so,
only
too.
the begin. It's the backstory and the beginning of this journey
Of the actual
that
story.
he's gonna go
Yeah.
on.
It's the only way. I'm gonna have to talk about this off pod because there's just spoilers that I want to talk about this. But that prologue is the only reason why you would sympathize with the wife or him with the wife that you were shown, or why you would understand why he's so weird on how he's trying to rehab from this loss, because we get how weird their dynamic is. Not regular, even though it seems like it's regular. It's not regular.
If it didn't have the prologue, the movie would be. I think like you, Nate, would be even more off of this.
No, then that's
Yeah.
why
You know
that's
what
why
I
I really
mean?
think that the prologue really is my favorite part, is because it really does lay out that groundwork and establishes why he feels the way that he does. Because
wouldn't be
without
able
it,
to
it'd be like, I
yeah.
gotta turn this off.
You
Like,
wouldn't-
this is so
I
whack.
don't think
Like,
you'd be able to understand, not just you, but like that this movie, you wouldn't be able to understand it if it didn't have the prologue.
no, I agree.
You'd be like, why are you so upset about this?
Yeah, like you're fucking whack, my guy. Like, just go to Mexico and like party or something. But no, like this movie is beautiful, and like I said, like you don't get movies that really go this deep with human emotions and the idea of grief and what love can be, and like it's a cool movie. It is a cool movie.
And just the reputation that I think what makes this also interesting is the reputation that his wife and he has before anything, like what they are in this world. And it's like there's people who look up to the main character.
them.
Yeah.
To both, and then like they're almost, I would say, it doesn't really talk about it, but they're famous almost. Like they're known for being this couple that both of them produce different types of I guess I would say like entertainment, yeah, for Japan. And
One's a playwright and
One's a screenwriter.
yeah. And I think that like just the small stuff like that, and I think one big thing that you said, Gus, is what I was trying to get at, the patience that is in Japanese culture. It's why this movie and most Japanese movies seem to be very well tempoed, and maybe not to most people who see them. Maybe most people think they're slow, but to me, just because it's so different to what we're used to here, being fed constantly. We talked about like, oh, the memory of the dead wife. I'm not going to give you the 40 minutes of memories for the dead wife.
Just see her rolling around in the
in the
white
beach,
sheets.
yeah, or in the bed.
She was
you
the
know?
best.
Or when she woke up, it's never any. But yeah, I could see just what Nate was saying. I could see why this is one of the best films of this year, I guess last year, whatever you want to count it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it'll probably, I could see myself in the future, 5 years from now, revisiting this movie and maybe feeling even more of a connection to it. I don't know where my life is heading, and it's scary. I don't know. Hopefully not here, but I don't know. But I'm just saying. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll
know.
definitely want to revisit them.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. All right, guys. Those are all the movies we were going to talk about this week. Unless you guys want to say anything else. Do you want to mention anything else you saw? Did you see anything else?
I don't really think I've seen anything else.
I watched West Side Story, but I'm not talking about that.
I rewatched Titan and Lamb. They're still really good.
Go listen to those episodes. Episode
Yeah,
1 and 2.
exactly.
I did watch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest for the first time. I hadn't seen that. Yeah.
What'd you think?
It's crazy. That's really good. Yeah, no, I mean,
That's
I don't even know if I want to give spoilers out either. I know it's a really old movie, but Danny DeVito's character.
that's the first movie I'd ever seen Danny DeVito in.
Danny DeVito's character in there is interesting.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson is, I'm not saying anything new here. In fact, amazing actor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I understand why they thought maybe he could be Indiana Jones, but I also don't. There's a certain tone to his type of acting that, and I grew up like with him being older, and I still thought he was a good actor, like Anger Management.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's right. Oh my god, Goose
Departed or something.
or I mean, The Departed too.
I love
But
it.
Anger Management was like with Adam Sandler. Like that was, I remember being a kid and like watching that movie and being like,
That's
"Damn,
a core
Jack Nicholson
memory."
is like, he's a good actor." And that's not a good. I don't even know if that's a good movie, but I just remember thinking. But yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Amazing
That's a great
movie.
movie. Nurse Ratched could get smoked.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Jesus.
The one thing I will say about West Side Story actually is if you like musicals, I'm pretty sure you're going to love this one. I think that cinematography and the work that Steven Spielberg and the technical side, like the crew and all that.
You said the
did-
camera works crazy, huh?
Yeah, it's like some of the best, but I also felt like I was being punished for enjoying it. So West Side Story does not work for me on any
That's
level.
racist.
I literally never feel this way, and I feel like it's offensive. It's got some
It
of the
makes
best
sense.
looking shots I've seen in it, though. So, I mean, if you like musicals and you like beautiful camera work, I think you'll probably enjoy that, but I definitely did not. Stevie, my boy, Daddy Steven, you missed. on
Do
this.
something else.
Yeah, maybe this movie did deserve to bomb, and that's where I'll leave that. But
Oh man.
so it was a wonderful week in streaming
Yeah,
movies.
yeah.
Like I thought this was one of the best weeks we've probably gotten.
And I'm hyped to go check out After Yang too. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Definitely. So if you're hearing this and you're needing some things to watch, check out the streaming services and go to that recently added section. And there's a lot of good stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, Fresh is on Hulu. Turning Red is on Disney Plus. After Yang is on Showtime, and Drive My Car is on HBO Max. So if you're looking for movies to watch, we got you with the recommendations. We give all of these recommendations. I mean, I know we all feel a little differently about all of them, but I think overall,
Recs.
Yeah, 100%.
it was definitely
Yeah,
a
yeah,
positive
yeah, for
week,
sure.
Right? Yeah. So
Are we sure enough to let people know what we're gonna do next week? I know we're gonna watch something. We don't know if it'll be good enough for its own episode, but do we have
We
any
are gonna check out
set
X.
ideas?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna watch
Yeah.
X.
Hopefully, it's good enough to give you guys a whole episode.
hopefully it gives me what I wanted from the new Texas Chainsaw movie.
Yes.
Exactly.
So-
Like, just give me some
Just-
fun,
yeah, as
dude.
long as
Like,
yeah, I think that. Well, let's just do it, no matter what.
I'll
Yeah,
be down.
I think
I can
that'd be
commit to
interesting
it.
to do that.
Yeah, we could commit to doing it. I just was thinking also, there's nothing else that might be coming out this week that we're
We
interested
were gonna
in.
try to find a way to do worst person in the world,
mm,
but maybe we'll do 2 episodes next
Yeah,
week. Maybe
we'll
not.
see.
But is that because it's still in theaters, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe we should wait till after the Oscars to do worst person in the world.
that
But
could be good. X for sure.
X
Something-
for
yeah.
sure. I
'Cause-
think we can commit to X right
X
commit
gonna
to
give
X.
it to you.
Yeah, I knew we were gonna do X. Just wanted to. I wasn't sure if there was any more of those Sundance movies coming out. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. I gotta admit I'm not really too on top
Mm-hmm.
of what's releasing right now, but I do want to talk about X. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be a fun time. So
I think so too.
Tune in next week when we discuss. Who's the director of that movie? Is it Ty West?
Yeah, it's Ty West.
Ty
yeah.
West. Excuse me if I'm getting that wrong. His movie X. That should be fun.
Yeah.
So,
Is this a remake?
No, I don't know.
I think it's original. I don't know.
And we'll figure out.
Hey, we'll tell you next week.
We'll talk about it next week.
Now we're already doing next week.
All right, so X, what'd you think?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys.
man.
So,
All right, y'all.
Thanks for checking in. We're checking out. If you made it this far, like and subscribe. Smash that button. You know the drill, right?
Yeah. Shoot us a
share it with your
recommendation.
friends. Yeah. Let us know if you've seen any of these movies. Yeah, man. As a really fun week.
Yeah,
watching
it was a
movies.
good one. Movies are good right now.
Okay. I love you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.